Shalom Aleichem, this is Rabbi Kovacs. Mishnah Yomi continues in chapter 1 of Moed Katan at Mishnah Yud, the 10th and final Mishnah of this chapter, and it is still Chol Moed Sukkot while we are learning about the laws of Chol Moed, very appropriate. And tomorrow is a special day. It's the last day of Chol Moed, but it's Hoshana Rabbah, which we discussed in the Masechet Sukkot. We were learning there in the Mishnayot that there was a special minhag, a special custom in the temple involving ravot, the willows, and we have special customs dating to the time of the Nevi'im. We have Hoshana Rabbah, special prayers with hakafot, with our lulav and etrog in shul, even to this day. So let's pick up at Mishnah Yud. Osin Maakeh legog. You can make a protective fence for your roof, lemerpeset, or for your porch, maseh hedyot, in a non-professional manner, of a lo maseh uman, but not as a professional construction. Now, the Maakeh is a mitzvah mentioned in Deuteronomy, Devarim, chapter 22, and the idea is to have a fence around the edge of the roof, or the mirpesets, the patio, whatever it is, that people might, God forbid, fall off of, to prevent injury. Now, the case we're talking about in the Mishnah is a case where maybe it's an outbuilding or a shed or something where people aren't necessarily going up on the roof and using the roof. You know, in ancient times, they used to spread out fruits to dry on the roof, or you could eat lunch up there. And in modern times in Eretz Yisrael, the roof could be used for drying laundry or another number of other uses. So if it's a building where people are really going up on the roof and there's a possibility someone could fall off, then you'd be allowed to make the Maakeh even in a professional, very solid manner, because to prevent bodily harm or, God forbid, death, we can go all out to do so. It's just when you don't really, really need it, but you're doing it for the sake of the mitzvah, so you could just do it in a sort of amateur fashion, and then after Chol Moed, you do it in a professional manner. The Mishnah continues, Shofin et stokin, you can fill in the cracks with plaster, umagilinotan b'magila biyad b'regel, and you can roll them with a rolling of hand or foot. Now, the Mefarshim, they explain, they don't mean you could use a roller. Using a roller is a professional tool. It's a tool of the trade to have a paint roller to roll out the tar or the plaster. But someone could use their hand or their foot, even if the result is just as smooth as using a roller. But don't use a trowel. A trowel is another professional tool that was commonly used to fill in the cracks using plaster so you don't have drips. Mishnah continues, Atzir v'hatzinor. These first two are it's like a dowel for a door. It's like the sticking out part of the door, and the tzinor is the socket that sticky out part goes into. I'm sure there's a technical term for it. The hakura, or a beam, the monul, or the lock, the mafteach, or the key, shnishbru. One of these things broke on Chol Moed, metaknan b'moed. You'd be allowed to repair it on Chol Moed, b'votchlu yechavin malachta b'moed. But you couldn't schedule a locksmith, for example, to come on Chol Moed. So they bring down the halacha. The poskim say, if somebody's, God forbid, their car breaks down or their camel breaks down on Chol Moed, they could have it repaired. But to actually schedule maintenance for Chol Moed, we do not do. The Mishnah here concludes, V'chol kivoshin shu yachol le'chol mehen b'moed kovshan. Any pickles that you might eat during the festival season, you may pickle them. The idea being that it was common to pickle foods to preserve them for long-term use, but if this is food you're going to eat during Chol Moed or during the last days of Yom Tov, go ahead and pickle it up on Chol Moed. Now we turn to chapter 2, and we're continuing the theme of ongoing processes. So Mishnah Aleph in chapter 2, Mi shahafach et zetav. Somebody turned over his olives. Now this was a stage in their processing when they're getting soft and they're about to be pressed into olive oil. The eru evil, and God forbid he became a mourner. He lost a close relative. O onus, or there was a situation beyond his control. Oshe hit uhu polim, or the workers he hired to do the actual pressing and extract the olive oil, they tricked him, or they just didn't show up to work, or they demanded a higher wage, or whatever it was, where they were unable to fulfill the contract. And he couldn't actually press the oil before the Moed. So now what could he do on Chol Moed? And again, this is to avoid a loss. Once you've turned over your olives and they're getting soft, the juice is going to start to ooze out and then rot if you don't squeeze them in the olive press and bottle up the olive oil appropriately. So what can you do? Toen kora rishona umanicha la'achar moed. He can load up the first beam and leave it until after the holiday. He'll come back next week, and when it's not Chol Hamoed anymore, and finish up. So this first beam is the first press. So the extra virgin olive oil they get from the first press, that he could extract, but the additional pressings with additional weights, he could not. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. That's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Rabbi Yossi Omer Zolif v'gomer v'gaf kedarko. Rabbi Yossi disagrees. He says someone can spill the olives onto the press and finish pressing them out, by adding additional weights to get all the residual oil out of the pulp, the gof kedarko, and seal up the vats of olive oil in the normal manner. Yashar kochachem, moedim l'simcha, and negut moed.